everyone, Dr. Lewis here. So you've just turned in your first paper, and now we're going to talk about professional emails, resumes, and cover letters. And the reason why I have some of these little itty mini assignments kind of peppered throughout this course is because I see this as related to we're really trying to make ourselves better writers and thinkers, but eventually those skills will be transferred into documents that will help you hopefully get a job. So there's an eye on the practical end to learning skills in this course and how to express yourself, and then also having to express yourself as a job candidate. So this is just a brief little overview of how to express yourself professionally as a potential employee, excuse me. So one thing that I want you to keep in mind is that the internet is public. And I know that's something that we've increasingly become aware of over the years. But there's still every couple of months we have a big scandal because someone tweets something or posts something and then is shocked that the entire world can see it. So keep in mind that everything on the internet is public, even if you have a private profile. You will also be judged for what is on the internet. There are many employers that will ask for your social media pages or scroll through them really quickly. So just be aware of that and kind of make choices at least with that in mind. Even if you don't change your behavior necessarily, just be aware of it. Be careful with social media. Again, everyone can see that. Be careful what you put into writing. It's a permanent record. And be aware that even social media profiles can be used in job searches or even reported to the police. We have actually had people who've gotten arrested for things that they wrote or admitted to on the internet. And it's always kind of surprising to me, like if you commit a crime, why are you confessing to it in a way that can be screen capped and sent somewhere? But it happens. And obviously you shouldn't be committing crimes at all, but just again, keep that in mind that the internet is something that is seen as a record, and it's something that everyone can see. So, email addresses. If you still have an embarrassing high school email address, now is the time to change it. So I had a student email me something a long time ago that had sexy in it. And this is funny. I had a good laugh when I got it, but remember that people can see your email address. So use your school address or some neutral other email address. That should be some version of your name. So I do have a school address, and I've been at a few universities now, so I've always had a university address of some sort or another. And that's what people are expecting, particularly, if you're still in college or newly out of college, so that's fine. At some point, it might be good to get yourself a good neutral email address that won't be tied to a university, though. So I have a Gmail that is basically my name. So I got that early. Gmail is seen as a relatively professional email address that isn't attached to a university. And again, make it some bland version of your name if you can't just get your name. So, and just think about that as a possibility at some point. When you email someone, and this is where I'm kind of going also into talking to professors or talking to people who are kind of in positions of authority in addition to just potential employers with this next couple of slides. So you want to have a specific subject line and be sure to see whether there are rules for the subject line. So instead of just hello or question, write question about paper number 1 due date. Some jobs may have actual specific rules that they will throw out your application if you don't follow them. So this might be something like Eric Green, computer engineer job application and the date. So it might be very, very specific, and you just have to plug in your information, and that's how they kind of organize emails. So just be aware it should be very specific, and it should also be, if there are rules, you should follow them. For a greeting, depending on formality, this might change. So a simple Mr. Green or Dr. Green may suffice for a professor. For a formal job, you may begin to whom it may concern. Dear Mr. Green is also a neutral one, but still a polite opening. Some of you are probably used to being very casual, even with teachers, or feel okay it's to be casual with professors or instructors who are younger or seem cool. This might also even go over to someone who's interviewing you. So you might interview with someone who is around your age and you tend to get along. And what you want to do, though, is fight the urge to be too familiar before someone has given you permission to do so. So never assume it's okay to call someone by a first name. And it's kind of like a nickname. Like, you might have a nickname that only your parents call you, and it'd be kind of weird if a stranger started calling you that out of nowhere. So never just assume Eric is okay rather than Mr. or Dr. Green. If you do not know whether to use Dr., Ms., or Mrs., then MS for women is considered the respectful, safe choice, and Mr. is for men. I found with teachers, if you call them doctor, even if they're not, that's okay too. But always err on going more formal than less formal unless someone has explicitly told you, oh, it's okay, just call me Eric. You should introduce yourself. So my name is blank from blank, and I am writing to you about blank. So this will change just a little bit on context, but sometimes I have students email me and I have no idea what class they are in or why they are emailing me. So a random iPhone message that says something like, hey, what is the homework? Is confusing because I have multiple classes. So it might take detective work to even figure out who you are. And people don't, I don't want to have to, let me try to figure out what the student's name is. Okay, let me try to figure out which class they're in. When did they send this? That's probably not something that teachers are going to do, so try to be very explicit. My name is Eric Green. I am in your 2 to 315 English 1101 course. And obviously you plug in your own information there. That automatically helps us. And it's the same thing for jobs. So you want to make sure that you repeat your name and your reason for emailing. It should be very clear. My name is Eric Green. I am a computer engineer applying for this specific job. An internship would be the same thing. So give your name, basic information, and immediately the reason why you're emailing someone. And this is just, it helps. It seems professional, and it's also easier on the person that you're emailing. Be polite, brief, and formal. No text speak. If you find yourself rambling for a long time, consider shortening or requesting a face-to-face, or I guess in this class it would be a Skype meeting. So both of those are options. Try to have a respectful, formal tone. I'm not saying that you have to be pretentious or use a thesaurus. I'm not saying that you have to agonize over word choice necessarily, but cut out stuff like, hey, LOL, I drank too much last night, so that's why I didn't write your paper. And I've actually had students tell me that before. So you want to cut out stuff like that. Again, keep it short, respectful, and polite. Do not be inadvertently rude. Use less details rather than potentially annoying ones. So instead of saying, I spent all day studying for chemistry, so I didn't do anything for your class, just say, I apologize for not being prepared for our meeting. Is there any way I can reschedule? And again, this can be applied to job emails as well. You don't want to talk for too long. People don't want to read a 2-page email with too many details. You want to be just very clear about why you're emailing and the most important information that they need to know at that moment. End your email by thanking the person for their time or some other polite, neutral phrase. Right now, it's really trendy to say best, just BEST and then comma and then your name. space and then your name. You might also say sincerely for more formal occasions. It really depends on what you're the most comfortable with. Again, it's always nice to get in the habit of thanking people though, because it's polite, people like it. And then at the end of the email, you should always have your name, but for a job application, you should also have your contact information. So you want to get your contact information to them as many ways as possible, like resume, cover letter, email, like just stick it basically anywhere that you have your name, because you don't want them to be like, how do I contact him again? You don't want to do that. You want to have it so it's basically in front of their faces. Proofread. Always proofread. Look for typos that make you look careless. Edit your tone or make your email more concise. Format your email in a clear manner. It should look like an actual physical letter with spacing. So instead of like one huge blobby paragraph, actually put some spaces in there. You can also, a good tip, type an email without the email just added in until you've proofed the email. And that way you can not accidentally send something too soon. Be aware that tone is sometimes very difficult to read through email, so be careful. You don't want to make people angry who are in control of your grades or raises or the hiring process. So even if you feel wronged in some way, approach it in a professional manner and not an aggressive one. So you can be firm in a request, but don't be disrespectful or angry with someone, especially over email. Also, give someone the benefit of the doubt. If they see a lot of people, don't get aggressive because they haven't called you right away. And sometimes that actually happens. So give them the benefit of the doubt, be polite, be professional. So going on to resumes and CVs, which at this point you should have one, and if you don't, you'll be making one for this class. So depending on the field, you may need slightly different types of resumes. Some may need more like a CV, which is a curriculum vitae and tends to be longer. Some may be more like a portfolio, so always check exactly what your field likes and needs. Feel free to ask for help. You should have some sort of departmental support or university help. There's also just absolutely tons of examples that you can look up online. You might also have a few different versions of your resume that appeal to different types of jobs. So I have a teaching heavy resume, and then I have one that emphasizes community service. So obviously if I'm going for a teaching job, I'm going to use one. If I were going to apply for a non-teaching job, I would use the other. Look for keywords in the job description and then alter your resume, just tweak it a little bit to match. So maybe if they're really looking for somebody who is invested in diversity, then maybe you need to tweak your wording a little bit to emphasize how you match that need. Formatting, there's a million type of ways to format a typical resume. So Microsoft has a template program as well as many other sites. There's not one correct way to do it. There really isn't. So it's a really like, what looks attractive to you? What do you like? And get a couple other people to look at it, because sometimes, like I was told, you're actually burying, it's really confusing how you have this set up. And it wasn't confusing to me, but it was to someone else. So let someone else look over it. Remember that simple and clean is always better. Use a straightforward font, and normally do not use pictures or embellishments. Put the information you want to be seen the most first. Many hiring managers will only really look at that first page, so you don't want your best experiences to be on the second or third page. You want that to be first. Typically, you have your name, contact information, and education first. Then work experience, then award and honors, then volunteer experience or interest section. Then add in relevant technological experience as well. This may change, depends on what sells you. So let's say that you, at this point, some of you may have no or very little work experience, so you can really emphasize awards and honors or volunteer experience more. So it really depends, like, where do you shine? And get that to be what comes first. You can play up different parts of your resume to sell yourself. So if you had a major volunteer job over 0 work experience, you would put that first. And then, eventually you get rid of stuff like in high school I had a good attendance award. But some of those little awards you can kind of leave embedded in there for now anyway. Depending on your specific situation. If you're 18 or 19 and you have no work experience and all you have is a year or 2 out of college, then your resume may keep those things. It might change 4 years from now. Most places recommend adding dates as well. So you should have a date of when you're working a job, a date range, and then you should also have like, when did you graduate college? For right now, if you haven't graduated college yet, which I'm assuming you haven't, you can say in progress and then the date that you're supposed to graduate. So it would be like May 2019, in progress May 2019, or something to that effect. Be very specific about your information. So instead of worked on committee for Fine Arts Journal, say that you were an assistant editor overseeing 10 committee members for Fine Arts Journal that printed 5,000 copies. You want to sell your skills rather than just listing duties you have performed. So instead of saying, I took minutes for meetings, say that you helped organize and distribute information for your company using word processing systems. So you kind of think about wording. Think about how you can word yourself to seem more impressive, and the more specific, the better. A lot of you may not have a lot of experience right now, and education may be your main selling point, and that's okay. Employers realize this, but you want to focus on something called transferable skills. And this means even if you don't have tons of amazing or relevant experience, that you still have developed skills that can transfer to most jobs. So let's say that you worked for 6 years as a line shift manager position at Taco Bell. On the surface, that doesn't sound like, the job that's going to get you in the door. But what you want to focus on the fact that you were a manager. Focus, what did you do that your employees who weren't managers, what did they do? Did you oversee a group of 10 different people? Did they trust you more with the money? Were you allowed to count, maybe you're the only one that's allowed to count the money. Focus on the skills with that would help sell you as a great employee. Maybe you were the one that had meetings with other investors that came in. Maybe you were part of the meetings that most of other employees didn't go to. So you emphasize that. So even if it's maybe not the most, maybe it's not necessarily the job you eventually want in life, but it's something that you can focus on how you excelled at it and what you did learn from it that can transfer to other positions. So you do put your fluff jobs at least at first. This is not to say that you will always keep a job that you worked in fast food or other ones or walking dogs. So you can keep them at first. Just make sure to sell them in a successful way and drop them when you no longer need them. You can, at least for now, add in other types of experience. So internships, extracurriculars, volunteer work, even relevant coursework. So even strange activities can be altered into transferable skills. This is actually a true story. My best friend in high school was a statewide champion in bowling. Before I met her, I didn't even realize that you could be a state champion of bowling, but she was. And that was because she trained, she won money, she took part in fundraisers and press releases, that she was interviewed by news. So this is actually like a sport that she succeeded at. And she didn't even have that on her resume for a while until someone told her, like, that's experience. It's not only something that'll stick out, but you have some skills there. I have another friend who was a ballerina for basically all of her life, from the time she was a very small child. And she, again, this is a lot of work. She actually danced in a professional troupe. She was paid for it. She took part in community service programs as part of her connection to that troupe. And so those are also skills that maybe, like, because she's not working as a dance teacher now, but at the same time, those are skills that can be transferred. So again, focus on what has your life experience up until this point done to recommend you as an employee. Even if your experience is not directly related to the jobs you are applying for, transform them to make them relevant. Focus on interpersonal skills, responsibilities, organization, and time management. Okay, so cover letters. And this is the one that I'm assuming most of you probably have not written. So cover letters, or at least more of you have not written. Cover letters are a brief letter introducing yourself as a candidate for a job. Keep in mind that different places want different types of cover letters. Always read the directions. Some require that you put it in the body of your email, and some require an attachment. Again, read emails, or read directions. Some want a brief one, while some want 2 to 3 pages. The standard cover letter is usually 1 page, maybe not even a full page, and 3 paragraphs that fit on 1 page is considered standard. These are typically not double-spaced as well. So with the cover letter, the goal of the cover letter is to introduce yourself and interpret what is on your resume or CV, not repeat it. So you will touch on what is on your resume, but with more of a focus on expanding how these facts about your life make you qualified for the job or internship or scholarship. You want to expand on the actual skills you have that make you suited for the job. Sometimes the cover letter actually takes the place of your objectives or about me section on your resume. So a lot of you probably have this objectives or about me, and I'm seeing a trend where those are kind of disappearing a little bit and being absorbed into the cover letter. So if you have no idea what a cover letter is, it's kind of an expanded about me or objectives section. Your letter should be specifically geared toward wherever you are applying. You should pull language from the job description or otherwise personalize the letter. You may have a form letter, but make sure to personalize it as needed. So you want to sound interested and well-informed about the position. Research the actual institute, company, or job and let that show in your cover letter. So I've pretty much just worked at universities, and the first thing that I do when I see that there's a job application, or that I have done when I've seen a job application, is I have researched the university. Look up, what's going on there, open up the English department page, skim through what that department is about. And it takes so little of your time and makes you so much more prepared, not only to write a cover letter, but also when we get to interviews. So you want to sound somewhat informed and not just feel like you have a really generic cover letter that you're just pumping out to literally every company. You want to connect your cover letter language to stuff you have actually done. So don't just say, I am detail-oriented, which everybody says in their resume or cover letter. Explain what exactly in your experience proves that you are detail-oriented. Use specifics as much as possible. So instead of saying you ran a literary journal, state how many copies were printed and how big your team was. So again, get specific. So what proves that you were motivated? What proves that you're detail-oriented? So maybe you'll say, maybe you edited the newsletter for your company. And then you could say, I'm detail-oriented because I had to edit that. It went out to 1,000 different people, and I went through it making sure there's no typos and making sure that it was a professional product, and then formatting it in a way that was attractive. So maybe that proves that you're detail-oriented rather than just saying that you are. If you're saying that you're motivated, give an example. Say sales went up 10% when I became the primary salesperson for that department because I thought that we could do better by doing X, Y, and Z. So prove that you are these words that sometimes sound empty, like everybody says they're detail oriented. Prove why you are. So you begin with a very, again, like the email, a direct and informative first sentence. Introduce yourself. Someone may be skimming hundreds of these for a position, so you want to be relevant and interesting from the very beginning. I'm a university fundraising professional with more than 10 years of experience, and I'd love to bring this expertise and enthusiasm to your growing development office. So, and that one, I'm assuming the first sentence actually says the name. So you have, again, you introduce yourself, you say exactly what you are, you give hey, I have lots of experience, so that's always good, and or whatever stands out about you. So you might not have 10 years of experience, but insert something else there. And I'd love to bring, with enthusiasm, this to and then again, specific as possible. Don't just say your job, because then they know you're just copying and pasting. You want to find a balance between being enthusiastic and being kind of like a teenager. So you don't want to be gushing too much. You want to be excited, but not too excited. Going overboard with praise for a company or an individual at the company might make you seem kind of desperate. And you might be desperate, but you don't want to seem desperate. Also, try to avoid being funny. And this is a hard one because I like puns, I like dorky jokes, but humor is something that is complicated. Not everybody is going to share your humor. Not everybody is going to get it, particularly in writing. So maybe they get it in person, but not in writing. So for the most part, just kind of and this really depends on the person. I've had friends who have argued with me about this qualification and say that they just have a killer little joke. And it's up to you. Maybe you do have a killer joke and maybe you want to work at the type of company that would laugh at it. So it really comes down to a choice. But for the most part, don't try to be a comedian there. You also want to get started early. So that's partially why I am forcing you to write this in 1102. So you can never start too early. People spend years developing these documents, so you want it to be a document that feels like it has years of care in it. Proofread, get friends to help, get professors to help, get the university to help. Also, never undersell yourself. So you would be surprised how many cover letters I have read and received in life that seem to emphasize how little experience a person has. So if the first couple of sentences are outlining how you have no experience, that's not a good tone to set. You don't want to focus on what you don't have. You want to focus on what you do have. And if experience is a deal breaker, you're not going to lie your way out of it. They know how much experience you have just by looking at your resume. So you don't want to point it out. You don't want to say, hey, emphasize on how little experience I have. So what you want to do is, rather than emphasizing your weaknesses as a candidate, focus on your strengths. So all of this is leading up to, I want you to create or edit your resume at this moment and a draft of a cover letter. So by the end of the next part of our submodule, you will upload your current resume and a draft of a cover letter to Dropbox. If you do not have a current job opportunity that would require a cover letter, then make one up. You don't have to have an actual position that you're applying for. So you can write to your dream job, you can write to your dream company, and you can practice selling yourself in that way. Also consult the samples posted on D2L for a starting point. So I have an example of a cover letter and cover letter revision. And then I also have an example of just a really basic resume. So if you've not created these documents, those are kind of examples that you can at least get started with working on them. So again, I want everyone to be successful, and these are some of the documents that you have to feel comfortable creating and maintaining in order to be successful throughout your life. So we're going to practice that now and kind of get started and be comfortable with it, so it's not something that is a problem maybe a couple of years from now when you're applying for a new job, or maybe even applying for your first job. All right, so again, if you have any questions, let me know. You have the virtual lounge open that you can ask questions, or you can shoot me a D2L message. If not, I will see you next time.